Call this meeting to order.
We'll take roll. Danford.
Here.
Herring.
Here.
Farrar. Here. Irwin.
Here.
Healy. Here. And Herman.
Here. This board does welcome public comment. However, we do ask that you remain respectful to the board and all individuals in attendance at all times. We ask that only one person speak at a time. With that said, are there any public comments?
Don't you have a regularly scheduled meeting for Monday?
We do, yes.
Why did you not, why is this so urgent that we have to pay you extra money to have a special meeting?
Actually, the board isn't getting paid any additional money for this meeting.
So you're not getting paid $50 a piece?
No, ma'am.
Do you have a budget in place?
We are working on a budget tonight. That must be done within the first.
That's not
first
on your
quarter.
agenda.
It's on the committee meeting agenda, yes, ma'am.
I thought the committee meetings were last night.
No, we have a committee meeting after this meeting.
Is there some reason, I've been a resident here for 49 years, and in August I will have business over for 3 years. I saw you in at Casey's Monday, and you stuck your nose up at me. Why did you do that?
It was definitely not intentional, Cindy.
I took it as intentional.
I apologize.
Thank you for your apology.
Any other public comments?
I got a question.
Sure.
Are you gonna fire our police chief?
We're merely having a,
Cause I'm gonna be the first one. Me and him did not get along. But once you get to know the guy, he's really good. He cares about our town. He goes above and beyond what he, like if you guys don't think he does nothing, ride with him. Let the passenger seat in the police car. I mean, if you wanna ride it back, you can too, but.
any
That's all I
other
have to
comments?
say. Thank you.
I have a comment. I have several comments actually, and I don't want to take a lot of your night up, but I have written statements and affidavits and FOIA requests to present, also DCFS records to present. My sister's lived in this community for many, many years. I'm a taxpayer here as well. I get numerous calls which are very upset to the point of being sick, hospitalized, medication. She's a foster parent trying to take care of kids. She's struggling with cancer. She's disabled. She doesn't need this aggravation. It all comes from the point of Chief Frost. This all started about 5 or 6 years ago. He started making false accusations and saying she was leaving the kids unattended and called DCFS. That case was once again unfounded. This went on. Numerous other times have been called in by Chief Frost. Her neighbor even got called in for the same thing about that time. Neighbor's name's Casey, tried to call him, tried to talk to him for 3 weeks. He avoided her. There was nothing ever said to them. To this day, there still has been no resolution with that one, but that one was also unfounded. Chief Frost has called numerous times the DCFS hotline in the past couple of years. He has falsified statements against me. This is my sister's statement I'm reading to you. October 3rd, 2018 was an incident of a child, and I won't say the name, overdosed of alcohol and other items. His mother called 911 for medical assistance. Her son was a friend of them, the one she's raising, one of the foster kids. That young man was at home. He wasn't part of the incident. But once again, a DCFS report was made that her son, Robert Bowles, had overdosed, and his name was substituted for the real kids did it. So here come DCFS again. And as it'll show you in this, I'll present to the board that it was unfounded, did not happen.
Sure. This is the mother of the child.
Okay. That family's never been contacted. Then he came to the house that night after the overdose. Robert was not involved in the overdose, but he came to the house insisting that he'd had a 911 call for a disturbance at that residence. And that's why he was there, insisting on coming in and questioning, interrogating this young man who was 15 years old. Here is a FOIA request and the FOIA document from Hyde County Sheriff. There was no such 911 call when he came to that address. He came and spoke about the truth. It wasn't true. During that interrogation, he was in there questioning Robert about what was going on, and Robert was a nervous wreck because this is his friend that had collapsed. And he said, I sure hope he's okay. By 3 witnesses, I was told Chief Ross turned off his body cam and said, he's probably dead. So this boy burst into tears, a 15-year-old boy who's distraught because his friend collapsed. That was very unnecessary. The turning on and off of the body cam when it suits somebody is not acceptable. That body cam goes on, it should stay on. There should be no uninterrupted periods of a body cam being on and off. There's been times I came over here to talk to the chief myself. I found him very unfriendly, very uncooperative, always telling me it's a simple matter or it's this or that with residents. Tonight was the first night he's ever smiled and approached me and said hello, and I wonder why. This has went on, like I said, for 5 or 6 years. And I've got a full statement here I will share with the board about all the incidents that's happened, and then we'd like that back so you can have a copy. Also, these dates are all the times he's called DCFS on her, and all the times it's been unfounded by numerous false reports on her. That's not her neighbors, her friends, or the other children in your community who he should be mentoring. Most police chiefs take on children that have lost their parent, as my nephew has, and they mentor them to get them in the right direction, especially if they see them sliding backwards or wrong. That is the case here. Instead, they're tormented. There's nothing in the community for the children to do, and so then we torment them. So what do you think that drives them to do? They're going to act out. My nephew and them don't have much respect for the law, and I can tell you, I do have respect for the law, but the officers that deserve it get the respect, not the ones that misuse their authority. Furthermore, I would like to say that the chief, as you can read through there, you'll see there's other incidents and other things that has happened through the last 5 to 6 years to make this a whole bad situation and a fireball of effects. I really hope this meeting is intended to turn him around, and maybe I instructed 17 physician practices for many years, several hundred employees, and I can tell you, you have employees sometimes that's neither not on the bus with you, don't want to get on the bus with you, or you haven't trained them properly to get them on the bus with you. And if it's a training issue, I suggest we go back and retrain him to get him where he's on board and serving your community to the best of his experience and help your community. Because right now you're getting a black eye from this, and this is to the point where we're ready to hire counsel because we cannot continue like this, and she can't be upset. You know, one of the kids have already went to Indiana and lived because he felt like nothing was happening good here. And that was the one who burst into tears tonight and said this boy was dead, or probably dead. But that better explains things than I do, because I'm a bit nervous and I'm a bit frustrated about the situation, because I've had more than a dozen calls through this last 5 or 6 years myself, with my sister in tears, and to the point where she can't eat all day and sick because of this. And when somebody's taking chemo, they don't need that extra aggravation. It's unnecessary. And to just distraught and be mean to a disabled person and a child who's lost their parent, that's not necessary in life. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yes, sir?
My name's Travis Brown. I've been a citizen for about 15 years. In the 15 years I've been here, Chief Ross has probably been the best chief that I've seen walk through here. He gets plugged in with the children. Just Saturday night our church had an event and he was plugged in playing with the kids. My son knows his name because he goes to the school, spends time with the kids. Every time he sees a cop car, is that Officer Ross? No, we're not in Atwood, we're in Decatur, wherever. But he's made a big impact on this community, and I'm grateful for what he does, and I'm appreciative, so.
Sure. Thank you. Anyone else?
I will say one thing, I do babysit, have babysitting kids that I take in my home and care for, and once a babysitting kid's parent drops their kid off, I am responsible for that child to love, protect, care for them, to make sure they're safe. Had an incident last year, over the summer, to where Rob showed up my door with papers in his hands that I wasn't allowed to see, but he said they're signed by DCFS, that I was bringing the little boy to go get the little boy he needed taking. And I had already had a call from the little boy's dad saying that, no, don't let him take him, don't let him take him, I'm almost there. Well, he insisted that I give him the little boy, or else I could have been in trouble. And I have 9 kids myself, didn't want to get in trouble, so gave him the little boy. Come to find out later from Greg Dixon, that is, I don't know what he is over at Douglas County, but, okay. He gets everything to win a paper, he knows when everybody's on duty and everything. Come to find out from him, he wasn't even on duty that day, but he came in uniform and everything. But one thing I remembered, that anytime that he's ever came to my house in the past 4, he's always doing whatever with his camera. He didn't even have a camera on that day, that he came to my house to pick up this little boy. Then I come to find out all this, that he was not on duty that day. He wasn't working, but he showed up in uniform to get the little boy. And I'm the mother of what she was just talking about, where Rob said about
The overdose of her son.
about your friend's probably dead or whatever. That was my son, and I don't really appreciate it. They're here to serve and protect, but that's not serving and protecting when you're, saying that about another. That's my child,
Thank you. Anyone else?
I have one more thing to add. I have been before the board last 6 years 3 times. Once with Beverly, and well, the second time wasn't with the board, but I spoke to Doris Elmore and Chris, your village board president, and I addressed these concerns and these problems. In specifics, Chief was moonlighting up at Savoy 16 Theater, and he'd been doing it for quite a while. Well, my sister, who doesn't have much money raising these kids, she gets no assistance for it, financial pay-wise, they get a little bit of length, but, nothing major. They scrape together enough money for these children to go to the theater. To them, that's a treat, that's a joy when you have nothing. They get them up there, and they take them, had to scrape together gas money, get them up there. They was removed from the theater by Chief Frost, once again, even in Savoy, Illinois, because he said they were unruly. And I addressed this with Chris and Doris, and of course it got brushed under the rug, and they was giving me many excuses and said they knew he was moonlighting. And I asked him if they understood the liabilities while he was working up there, if he's a salary employee here.
What, was he in uniform or was he?
I don't know if he's in
Savoy
uniform,
16?
but the kids sure know who he is from all this stuff. And I guess when they asked him to leave, the boys did raise their voice at him because that was their one treat for the month. And now it's taken away from them. They didn't even get to enjoy the movie, and they had to call for a ride from Savoy back there because none of them was driving age.
Thank you.
I
Yes,
did
ma'am.
call the headquarters of the Savoy 16 Theater, and they did reimburse it and have it under investigation.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I got the letter in my van if you need that.
If you could, that'd be great.
Yes, sir. And I still got the tickets, we can use them.
Anyone else?
I'll say the last thing. I took Bev over, a couple questions. One, I do have a concern why you're having all of these special meetings. I mean, you haven't even been a full board a month yet, and you're having 2 special meetings. I don't think some of you haven't been on the board very long, even know what the heck the job duties are yet. So, having a special meeting seems a little bit overkill. Second point, and the same point I made before, I think the first meeting I was at, You have employees that have been long-term employees here at the city. Some of you don't know them, and I would suggest that you really get to know them before you start making decisions on who they are, what they're doing, if they're doing the job or not doing the job. You're doing something with personnel policies later on. I don't know what the current personnel policies are. I hope you're following them. If you're having new personnel policies, you're gonna have to make sure everybody knows what they are before you start taking actions on those new policies. You keep talking about transparency. I'm not really seeing transparency yet because I don't see all this stuff. I can't see this information. But I would encourage you as a board to think carefully about who you're hiring, who you're firing, and are you following all your proper procedures? Because that's what your personnel policy is for, and that's your job, is to make sure you're following all your policies.
Sure.
Okay? That's not that a second.
I got another question, well, not a question. How many people live in this town?
It's approximately 13.
Okay, you got like, what, maybe 4 or 5 people complaining about the police chief? Why don't you take up a poll? Like, we vote to see who we want in office. Why don't we take up a poll, see who thinks our chief is doing a good job? Who, if they don't think he's doing a good job, what can he do better at? And then we go from there. Because, I mean, it seems like all the complaints he has on him is about kids. Obviously, he cares about kids because he's gonna keep checking up on them. Like, kids nowadays are doing a lot of stupid things, so I think he should continually check up on the kids that are having issues. So, I mean, that's what I have to say.
Thank you.
I'm done.
What I suggest is, with the prior board, I don't think officer had a lot of boundaries and he got to do a lot of things.
I agree with
And
that.
I think that my personal opinion is come up with a new plan and new rules and new boundaries. And then if he doesn't follow that, because I hate to go backwards and discipline him for stuff that was from a whole different board.
I agree with that.
What was the stuff that wasn't boundaries?
Secret meetings and, or letting him, if moonlighting is, you know, okay.
They knew about it, but nobody else
Do you
did.
think he makes a lot of money working here? He's gonna need another
It doesn't
job.
matter, you got rules.
But again,
As long as he
it was
has
a
uniform,
different
it doesn't
board,
matter.
different thumbs
One
pushing down.
person at a time.
Sorry. So I feel that he is so good with kids, he's so good at the school. He's really proactive with these kids. So I think new boundaries, new rules, and then.
But he picks and chooses which kids.
He cannot do that. Gotta work with them all.
No.
Okay. Oh no, here goes. No, I have kids that forget lots of things, and so I'm in the school about 3 times a week because my kid forgot their band instrument, their lunch, all kinds of things. And one of the things I always see is Rob in there with the kids. So there are always kids that have bad interactions, and there are lots of kids that have good interactions. And the truth of life is, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and they squeak, man. And so when somebody's when somebody's doing a good job, they don't always tell you. They don't just come in and say, we're gonna have a special meeting to tell you how awesome our police chief is, because my kids didn't get shot at school today. Because my kid didn't get beat up at school today. Because all these bad things that could have happened didn't happen today. So thank you for that. Because we've had officers get hurt in this town. We've had really bad things happen. And we don't have special meetings to tell you thank you, but we should. And you have to look at the number of calls that come in a year and then see what percentage this is of a complaint even. Because in hospitals, you have one complaint and it can be terrible, and then you saw 13,000 patients in that month. So you have to look at a percentage of, okay, if these are complaints, do you have a 100%, like, are you allowed to never mess up? Is this a never fail? And if it isn't, then figure out when you're operating in that. But thank you, and thank you for letting us have an officer that's allowed to go in the schools, that's allowed to be with our kids, because they need to run towards him and not away from him. And like Travis said, that's what keeps all of us safe. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Well, that's all well and good. You can't tell me that every individual child is the same, and every child has the same needs. And part of his job, I would think, would have the flexibility to understand what a child's needs are. If someone needs a little extra attention, or to misguide them, or to guide them back in the right direction, that would be great. It's all nice and dandy that you go see the good kids and the church kids and the fine kids, but you know, each one of you sitting on the board has different children, or might have children, might not have children, or might have interactions with him that isn't good. And I think as an individual, and God bless that they've had good experiences, because I haven't seen one of them, not one in all the interactions that I've witnessed, seen, or heard of. And I heard more than these 3 or 4 voices today. I've had phone calls for 3 days wanting to know about this.
Is Robert our only officer?
He is currently our only full-time officer, yes.
I mean, I feel like he needs a team for some support.
He
He can't do it all by himself.
He's currently actively looking for a second full-time officer. Our previous full-time officer
But
left.
you can only do so much on your own.
Absolutely.
Is that why the city employees have been doing ride-alongs? Does he need an extra backup?
What city employees have done ride-alongs?
Darren Sordo showed up at my sister's house, and then when he seen me coming, he got back in the car because he used to be my neighbor. And that's another little situation. I think you guys need to do background checks on your city employees before you hire them.
He's a copy.
It's a liability putting a citizen in a car for a ride-along.
Yes, sir.
I'm not trying to get in your guys' weeds and tell you how to do your job. We all know there's something happening here. I don't know exactly what's happening, but all I would ask is, and I'm not asking for specific details, but if he has been reprimanded or coached or any of that, I would hope that he would get that due diligence to make a change, and you guys don't just rapid act and say, you messed up, you're done. I mean, I have been a manager for 15 to 20 years, managed anywhere from 5 to 100 employees. And you always walk them through some type of session to improve. He can't do what he doesn't know that he's supposed to do. So I just hope, all I want you to hear is you give him the due diligence to change and not just make a decision.
Sure. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name's Kirk Allen. I want to echo what the gentleman just said. It's really important. With your agenda, you outline executive session and discussion and possible action on executive session. But as the gentleman expressed, they don't know what that may or may not be. And from an Open Meetings Act standpoint, I would hope that you seek some guidance from the Attorney General and your legal counsel, because I would argue that if you do take any action, the agenda is insufficient to inform the public under Section 2E as to what action you're actually going to take. And that can be problematic from a legal perspective and an HR standpoint down the road if you do take action. That's all I have. Thank you.
I have contacted them. He is under investigation.
And, I mean, what do you know that we don't know? That's the other question. What do you guys know that we don't know?
We're merely gathering information at this point, and this meeting was originally set up to basically have an expectations meeting with Chief Gross. That was the purpose of this meeting originally. And since the meeting was scheduled, there's been other individuals that have come forward with concerns and so on. So we've advised them that they can come here and voice their concerns, and we're taking that into account. So
You should be able to.
How many people are complaining about it? You guys know roughly?
That's what I'm
I
saying,
really
we
couldn't
need
say.
to know.
Huh?
I really couldn't say.
Do you know or you're just not saying?
I don't know a number. I don't know. Sorry.
That's my point, of what they know, we need to know.
If you
No,
can ask the other board members
I'm
if they
reiterating what
know
you're saying.
other people unhappy besides myself.
They know something we don't understand.
Maybe, because I know myself didn't prompt this meeting or open forum.
No. Yes, sir.
I've got a quick one. I'm John Kraft. If somebody is a mandated reporter, like police officers and teachers, And they report things that they believe they're mandated to report. You can't hold that report against them. Because what happens if they don't report it and then something happens? Then you're gonna hold it against them. I don't know any of the parties. I'm just saying that if it's a
He put
mandated
the
reporter,
wrong name
you're
of the
a
child,
mandated reporter.
knowingly what he did. He knew the child, he knew both children, and he falsified the reports of the names of the children and twisted it around.
I think one is supposed to speak at a time.
I didn't read any of the reports. I'm just saying it's a mandated reporter, that's a duty. You can't hold it against somebody because they report something that they're mandated to report.
With all due respect, sir, I'm a mandated reporter of 40 years. And I've seen many families come through our ERs, in our hospitals, in our clinics, with children that had bruises of unknown origin. And did I call and order a DCFS interrogation on any of those kids? You have to pick your poisons. You have to be able to distinguish what's a problem and what's not a problem. You can't send DCFS out so many times that DCFS thinks you're the problem. And this officer knows the two difference in the two boys. He knew Julie's son and he knew Robert. And to put Robert's name in that report, they live at separate addresses, they have separate parents, and to substitute a name and send the DCFS posse after a person they've sent them after numerous times, as you'll see on the paper I turned in, is uncalled for. And it won't be tolerated anymore.
Can I finish my comment?
Yes, go ahead.
And if a person is working a second job outside of the city, you can't hold his decisions working for another employer against him here either, unless he does something really stupid like one of our probation officers did in Coles County. But,
It
you know,
depends on what's in your contract too.
Correct. You shouldn't be able to hold it against him for doing something that's another job if you permitted him to have another. That's all I got, thanks.
Thank you.
Sorry, I know we're not gonna save the world in this one meeting. And one, I appreciate every board member. You guys put in your extra time away from your families, and we understand that. But I would just like to make a quick comment. I know I've already spoke a couple times, but I went to Decatur Public Schools, and we had police in our schools, more than one. We had 5. And if it had not been for the personal time that those 5 officers spent with not only me, but some of my friends, we wouldn't be in the positions that we are today. I think at some point you have to stop looking at the officer and look at the people that he's responding to. I mean, sometimes you have repeat offenders, sometimes you have certain people in the community. It also depends on, not only does it depend on how he gives, it also depends on how they receive.
Right.
So if they're gonna receive, no matter what, police are bad, or there's issues with police, or they see Facebook, or they see the news, or they see, unfortunately, this world is being taught to hate the police.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's this community, Decatur, Champaign, Urbana. And like I said, we have one that's willing to get in there and play with the kids and show the kids police aren't bad. I don't think that's a bad thing. It's something that Atwood should be proud of.
Thank you.
I've got one more. So the mandatory reporter thing, I think what you're looking at is intent, and intent is very difficult to prove. Because anybody that's a mandatory reporter, teachers, aides, people in healthcare, people in police, if you have any inclination that something isn't right, that's why it's not an if you feel like it reporter, you're a mandatory reporter. So if there's any part of it that doesn't look right, you have to report it. And there is not a DCFS person waiting to spring out of the walls and get you. You call them, and if they feel like it's warranted enough from that point to go look, then they go look. Just because I call DCFS today doesn't mean somebody's automatically going. It has to be, they are so
It's the
overworked.
hotline.
Have you seen the news lately? They've been showing how understaffed they are and how
They're required to go though.
well, if it is, if they consider it to be founded from the phone call. And so then again, it's not necessarily intent. It's like she said, somebody could come in the hospital covered in bruises. Maybe it was their brother that did it to them. But it's one of those things that if you pick up a little bit here and you pick up a little bit here and you get one here and you get one here and you get one here, it all keeps adding up. So if they get a call and they get another call and they get another call, they're gonna keep going even if it didn't sound like that much because they've been called before. And if you keep picking up pencils and putting them in a cup, that cup gets full, whether it was one huge thing or a bunch of little ones added up. And then news is covered with stories of kids that have died in their custody because they haven't gone. Every time I turn on the news, they are talking about these kids that have died because DCFS didn't get there. So I don't know how you could fault somebody for caring or calling or being concerned. Again, if you think there's malicious intent, then that's what you have to prove is malicious intent. And intent's tough.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
2 quick points. One, as a mandatory reporter myself, I would like to emphasize that an issue of abuse that you recognize goes both ways. And if an officer is abusing it, it comes to the surface pretty quick. DCFS will identify that because it's ongoing. And the other way as well, when it's the same situation, the same child, the same home, those things will self-identify and percolate to the surface. And hopefully, because of the reporting, those are public records to a degree, that information will take care of itself. If you haven't followed what happened in McHenry County, that mandatory reporting was not followed. The child suffered a miserable death from his parents. They've now been indicted on multiple counts of murdering their own son. And the doctor didn't do his job in the emergency room. It was reported that he had bruises. And the child even indicated that it may have come from something at home. And nothing was done about it. As a reporter, I'm not there to judge the validity of what I'm witnessing. My job is, if I have any doubt, I'm going to pick up the phone because I'm not putting my license on the line. My last comment, I want to thank you folks, and I want to thank everybody that's here, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. As a founder of a local government accountability organization, my hat's off to the way you're doing this. You are letting the people speak. You're even letting them go beyond their 5 minutes, and I thank you for that because we have found everywhere we go, if you let people air their grievances and have a conversation, a civil one, I know it can get heated, but when you do it in this format, you'll solve this problem. And it takes time, it takes patience, but when you act quickly, it will backfire every time. And my hat's off to you for the way you're handling it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Julie's a little nervous, but she just informed me that you guys might want to consider doing a retraining period on the use of Narcan by your officers. There evidently
You
a young
can't give
man-
too much Narcan.
You can't give too much Narcan, but
One
you
at a
have to know
time.
what the benefit's gonna be. Because I know when I give
Rather
Narcan,
you
they
can't
come
be
out
dead?
fighting.
Would you
They-
rather your kid be dead?
No, but you listen to me for 1 second.
If you can address the board,
Okay.
we don't need any sidebars.
Okay, I give Narcan. And I give it when they're not breathing, not when they are breathing. And yes, I've had them come back several times, and I've had several saves, unless they've been laying there for hours. But first off, they always come out fighting, because you pull them away, you've done beta blockers on their eye. So when they come out fighting, that's not a good choice to tase them and then put charges on them for coming out fighting. So I think there needs to be retraining on Narcan if you're gonna use it as a liability.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
What's the full story with that?
I think it's inappropriate for that right now. Next thing on the agenda is executive session for discussion regarding employee performance. 5 ILCS 120/21 for the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees for the public body.
I make a motion that we enter executive session.
Second.
I'm sorry, who made the second? Irwin,
Yes.
Ely,
Yes.
Urban,
Yes.
Herring,
Yes.
Ferrara,
Yes.
and Danvers.
Yes.
We are now executive session then.